Hey guys, so this is take 17 or 18 of the first two sentences of this video, which doesn't bode well. I guess it's just that kind of day. So bear with me if I'm stumbling on my language a little bit. My name is Brian. I'm a science teacher, former medical student, and I run an addiction and recovery blog called the Concrete Confessional Blog. I have been on and off of opioids for 15, going on 20 years now. I've also been on and off of benzodiazepines over the same period. And I'm right now tapering off of methadone maintenance, which I have been on for the past 2.5 or 3 years. So I am taking that methadone taper at an accelerated rate. Unfortunately, I've got some constraints in my life that mean that I can't follow my own advice and the advice of any doctor as far as doing a low, slow taper that gives your body plenty of time to adjust, to re-equilibrate along the way. So basically, because of that, I'm starting to experience pretty significant withdrawal symptoms. So I am recording this at about 2:15 in the afternoon on Monday, and I haven't slept, like literally have not gotten even 2 or 3 minutes of sleep since I think I woke up at like 7 or 8 in the evening on Saturday after the nap that I was able to get in Saturday night. So that was like a 2 or 3 hour nap, and have not slept literally not a wink since then. So last night, it's, days winding on, and when you can't get any rest, I'm doing the things. I went for a nice walk. I'm doing some mindfulness exercises. I'm distracting myself with a good book that I'm reading that isn't too taxing. But by the time it's like 1 or 2 in the morning, I am getting awful restless leg syndrome, which is one of the symptoms that most infuriates me out of the whole suite of opioid withdrawal symptoms. So my RLS is bad, and my anxiety is just very high. I feel very agitated. So what I decided to do was walk to the methadone clinic that I dose at, which is 9.5 miles from where I live. So I've been doing that more and more often lately because, again, I'm not sleeping at all the night before dosing. So the clinic opens at 5:30 in the morning, and I leave my apartment around like 3:15, 3:30, and I walk all the way there, dose, and then my brother or my dad is kind enough to pick me up and bring me back home. So I did that today. I've mentioned several times in a couple of different videos that I'm a distance runner. I've been into cross-country running since middle school. And so my current running regimen is every other day I'm doing 6 to 8 miles. So when I got back, I ended up doing just a very sort of moderate pace, pretty flat run. I ended up doing like 6 miles, I think is probably about what it was for my morning run today. So I've been in this state before. It's not going to last forever, but like for a few weeks to maybe 3 or 4 months, I really got to just run myself ragged enough that my body is tired and my mind is tired. Like that's the only way that I can get some of this agitated feeling out of me, to exercise it, and very crappy pun intended there, and just calm down enough that my brain isn't like a forest fire. So I've mentioned this before, but I can't tell you guys, running is like my salvation. Like running does more for my mental health than any therapeutic tool that I've ever been given. It does more for my health than any like SSRI or SNRI I've ever taken for anxiety. Like it calms me, it focuses me, and I have to be moving fast especially when I'm in this kind of tapering process with the withdrawal it entails. I'm the kind of person I have to be moving pretty fast to get into a mindful meditative state. But especially when I get the rhythm of my breath and my stride going, and I'm just there in my body, looking at everything going on around me, but not in like an active way, just kind of like taking it in, just being fully present. Like that is how I access a meditative state when I'm feeling these symptoms from withdrawing from methadone. And it does me huge good. It definitely is restorative, and I am very hopeful that like after I finish this video and put it up, I can maybe just finish my laundry and then sleep for a few hours. So that is kind of the snapshot of where I'm at right now. In terms of like the stepping back a minute and the overall process. So before I started tapering, I was at a relatively high dose of 203 milligrams of methadone per day. Now, again, that's not like insanely high. It's not unheard of. In fact, in the era of fentanyl, more and more people like whereas almost no one when the US illicit opioid supply was all heroin, almost no one needed a methadone dose of much more than 100 milligrams a day. Now there are a lot of people who need well over 200 milligrams a day. So there's been a sea change because of how much more potent fentanyl is. But also, it wasn't just that because in my case, I was coming off of benzos. I haven't taken benzos in over 2 years now. And because of that, I had so much extra agitation and anxiety. And so I was essentially using the methadone to compensate for not having the benzos in the beginning. I mean, in the beginning, when I was trying to get stabilized on methadone, I was shaking so badly. I went days and weeks without more than an hour or two of sleep at a time. I was completely dysfunctional. This was when I just got back from mainland China, where I had lived for several years and had to leave due to the COVID lockdown. So I was a mess. And because of what was going on with me coming off of benzos and phenobarbital, which I had also been taking regularly, I ended up on a higher dose of methadone. So again, I was at around 200 milligrams a day. I was stable there for like a year and a half. It was okay. I never felt that it was as steady as buprenorphine was for me. I burn off methadone pretty quickly, and because of that, I'm always getting that up and down, and you don't want that with maintenance. You want that nice, steady plasma state, nice, steady opioid effect, so the cravings go away, and you're not too eager to get your next dose. You can your brain sort of starts retraining itself not to be obsessing about when you last took some and when you'll be taking some more. So buprenorphine did that very well for me because buprenorphine is a partial agonist, which means you hit that ceiling, and then even if you take more, you won't get any more opioid effect. Now, methadone is a full agonist, and because of that, the more you take, the more opioid effect you get. And as it's wearing off, depending on how quickly you burn it off, you're going to lose that effect, and that can trigger a craving. It can trigger obsession about your internal state. So that was me on methadone. Like the year and a half that I was completely stable on it was some of the lowest quality of life that I've ever had in a period when I wasn't actively using. I don't know how to say it. Like obviously I'm using an opioid, I'm on methadone, but for a time when I wasn't actively using like street opioids or abusing a lot of short-acting opioids and benzos, like that was the lowest quality of life I've ever felt. I felt and feel awful in my mind and body. I had memory issues because the dose was wearing off later on in the day. I just could not sleep at night. Just all kinds of issues. So I wasn't happy on methadone. I didn't feel healthy, and I knew I needed to get off of it. And again, that's a process that I am doing very quickly. So as much as a taper, a low, slow, gentle taper is the best way to minimize the physiologic damage caused by drug withdrawal. I'm not really a taper person. I do much better ripping the band-aid off in like an inpatient detox, okay? So being put in a hospital-like setting for maybe a week or 2 weeks and having my dose very rapidly decreased. Historically, I've done better with that. Especially because I'm back in my hometown. It's very easy. It would be a matter of going to a street on the west side, and I know that I could get dope within 5 minutes. You know, I am in contact with family members and close friends who also have drug problems. So there's all kinds of temptation here. And as I get farther along in the taper, those thoughts of just to tell on myself, those thoughts have started coming up of like, oh, well, like you felt so awful for a week now, maybe pick something up and give yourself like just a little bit of a respite, give yourself like one day of feeling comfortable and then get back to your taper. And I know those thoughts are poison. I know that it will not ever just be that one day. I know with fentanyl, with this xylazine garbage that we've got in our illicit opioid supply right now, I know that one time time could finish me off. So I know how to counter those thoughts. I don't want you guys to get worried, but like those thoughts are coming up more and more often, and I knew that that would be the case. So that was one of the reasons why originally I looked into whether I could maybe just detox off under a much faster timeline in an inpatient setting. So I did have consultation with a doctor whose name is Terry Sellers and his business partner Gina. Phenomenal team. Like, if you're loaded, I highly recommend checking these people out. So the way their program works, it's one-on-one. You fly out to the mountains near Sundance in Utah, and they put you in a cabin, I think with a nurse practitioner who's there with you 24/7. The doctor comes and checks in on you every day. Gina comes and checks in on you every day. They switch you from methadone over to hydromorphone, and because that is a shorter acting opioid, they are able to bring you down with less agony over the course of 10 to 14 days, I think is their timeline. So you're off the methadone in, again, 10 to 14 days using a hydromorphone taper. So a taper with a short acting opioid that they switch you over to. And then they have a recovery program. It's really cool. So they do a pharmacogenomic survey to see what kinds of genes you have in terms of like alleles that are known to impact your mental health and how you react to certain psych medications. So if you say need a medication for anxiety or for depression, they look at your genes to see what medications are likely to be sort of most effective for you. They also work with one of the biggest companies that it's like a company that makes really legit nutritional products that are supposed to supplement different macro and micronutrients that you are likely deficient in after years of opioid addiction in particular. So anyway, this program cost like a luxury car amount of money. Like, out of my budget, I considered whether I should take a loan out to do it. Like, if I had an unlimited budget, I would be on the plane to Utah right now. Like, every single thing I brought up when I talked to them, like, they had an intelligent, really considered way to change their plan to accommodate my concern or to accommodate some fact about my physiology, like the way that my Graves' disease, my thyroid problem impacts me going through opioid withdrawal. Like, I have never, ever, first of all, in my whole time at the methadone clinic, I have seen an actual doctor for 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. So to see a doctoral level professional in my current situation is literally almost impossible. And to just be able to talk to a true expert, Dr. Sellers is like the person you go to get off of methadone, and to have him listen to me like that, like, it made me want to cry afterward, because I have never had that experience, hardly ever had that experience. Maybe once in the very first rehab I went to, which was fairly bougie in upstate New York, when I still had really good insurance coverage, there was a doctor there who would listen to you, who would spend longer than 5 minutes with you, who would adjust what she was doing, based on what you were telling her. But other than these two times, guys, it's like you never spend any time with the people at the top. It is so sad. Like, almost all the work of addiction treatment is handled by KSACs, who are credentialed alcohol and substance abuse counselors, who almost always have just an associate's degree. So no shade on them. They have a valuable function within the system. But if you were dying of a cancer with a comparable mortality rate, an opioid use disorder, it is the most deadly diagnosis of all mental health conditions in the US right now. If you were dying of a cancer that was, equivalently dangerous to your health, you wouldn't be okay with an associate's degree counselor or any kind of associate's degree educated professional masterminding your treatment, right? So it's kind of sad that that's what we get as addicts. But I guess I'm tired today, guys, and this is just all over the place. But so in the beginning of this process, I looked into alternatives. And the problem is, yes, I have insurance, but it's a weird system. So because methadone is maintenance, and because they technically say you can taper off of it under the observation of your clinic in an outpatient setting, they won't pay for you to go to inpatient for a week or two and do a rapid reduction. So I'm exploring whether there is any exception to that. Like, I don't know if I should just say that I'm using fentanyl so that my insurance will cover a rapid opioid detox. I'm not sure if I go in saying that I'm using fentanyl, if they will even allow me to decrease my methadone. They might want me to stabilize on the methadone first, and then, they'll discharge me and tell me to do the methadone decrease on an outpatient basis. So what I really need is to find like an ally who can help me find a way to sell this to my insurance. And I'm working on it, but so far nothing. And again, I don't have 50 or 100 grand literally to do this on a private pay basis. So it looks like for now I'm stuck with the taper. So again, I started around 200 milligrams, and I'm between half and 2/3 of the way done with my taper. For most of the time that I've been decreasing, which hasn't been very long, it's only been a couple months, I've been decreasing 10 milligrams per week. Now, even hardcore gels will only decrease you by 1 milligram a day if you're on methadone. So I'm going even faster than, corrections officers who enjoy torturing addicts. And as I said before, I'm torturing myself, but it was okay. I knew when I was at the higher dosages, those 10 milligram decreases weren't going to hit me very hard. And they didn't until I got 90, maybe 100 to 90. That was the first decrease where I really felt like, boom, like it hit me. And I knew that things were going to be different from there on out. So what I'm considering now is whether I should, again, if I can't go inpatient in some form, to get off of it in a week or two in a facility, considering whether I should switch over to buprenorphine, which has always been my plan B. Now, traditionally, what they've said is that if you're on methadone, you have to taper down to 25 to 40 milligrams of methadone a day, which is viewed as the equivalent dosage to the ceiling dose of buprenorphine. Okay? They've said you have to get down that low, and then you have to take a couple of days totally off of the methadone, because if you don't do that and your tolerance is too high, taking the buprenorphine will put you into really bad precipitated withdrawal. So that was the traditional view. However, there are all kinds of new protocols, and I think I'm going to make a video about this. There are all kinds of new protocols where different ways of doing it, but basically you microdose the buprenorphine, and using those techniques, you can switch from a much higher dose of methadone over to the buprenorphine with mild to moderate withdrawal symptoms. So there is the teaching hospital in my hometown of Syracuse, New York, which is called Upstate Medical University. There's sort of a clinical trial. I think it's an informal clinical trial going on right now where they're doing this. They're switching people over from methadone to buprenorphine, and they're doing it over the course of like 7 days. They're not making the methadone people taper down too far. They've had people at methadone dosages of 80 to 120, 140 milligrams a day switch over. They start with a really low dose of buprenorphine on the first day they give it to you, which is like, I think they give you maybe 0.1 milligrams or 0.2 milligrams. And as they're bringing that buprenorphine dose up, they're titrating the methadone dose down. So it looks something like that. And again, I think the nurse practitioner who I spoke to there, who was phenomenal, she said that they had only had like one person, I think out of 15 or 16, who wasn't able to complete the switch from methadone to buprenorphine. And all of the people who were able to make the switch had mostly mild withdrawal symptoms. A couple of people who said it was like, it was moderate, it was uncomfortable, but not so bad that they had to stop or that they couldn't deal with it. So I should probably mention that I met that nurse practitioner about 2.5 years ago when I was in the Cardiovascular Intensive Care Unit. I had a really bad overdose the last time I tried to taper off of methadone. I got down to 70 milligrams per day. I overdosed, and I was literally just totally not breathing on the side of the street, and an ambulance came, took me to the hospital. I was almost like comatose for the first 24 hours, or maybe 16 or 24 hours at least, and then I was in the CV ICU for at least 8 days, I think more like 10 days recovering. So those are the stakes for me. The last time that I tried to do this, I almost died. That was actually the origin story for my blog and eventually this channel, by the way. I realized I'd been writing about my addiction for years and sort of like waiting to write the book that I wanted to perfectly tell my story. And what I realized was that, not that many people read anymore. And as a a debut author who's not like a recognized name, I would be lucky to have even just a few hundred people buy and read my book, right? So that was one thing. And I realized, B, there's a huge risk I'm going to die of overdose or some other outcome of my addiction before I ever get to tell these stories. And I also wanted to be able to connect with my audience and like interact with people who are going through similar things. So I realized like I need a blog, I need a YouTube channel, and that all came from the overdose that I'm talking about. But yeah, those are the stakes for me. And that's when I met that nurse practitioner who was supervising this methadone to buprenorphine informal clinical trial at the teaching hospital in my hometown. So that might be an option. I made a phone call last week to see if I'm not able to get down to 25 or 40 milligrams of methadone a day through the clinic, if maybe this other teaching hospital will agree to switch me over at maybe say 60 or 70 milligrams per day of methadone. So yeah, so either way though, the theory behind switching over to buprenorphine is that there is now this shot available, a new formulation of buprenorphine called Sublocade. It's a once monthly injection. And whereas I had a bad time tapering off of the Suboxone, the sublingual strips, this Sublocade shot, I've had a family member and several friends say this thing is by far the easiest way to taper off of maintenance because it leaves your system gradually. It's essentially self-tapering. And on top of that, like you're not decreasing your dose. So the obsessive component, the fear-based component of figuring out how much you're going to take each day, realizing that you're decreasing your dose again, and then that anxiety kicks in, and then with it comes the cravings and everything else. Like that's not there because it's on the back burner. You're not even having to think about how your dose is a little bit less today because you don't even know it. And it's happening so smoothly as this medication is released from the fat that it's stored in that you're not feeling any abrupt decreases. It's just that beautiful idealized taper curve. So the theory behind switching to buprenorphine is not necessarily that buprenorphine is inherently easier to taper off of, although again, I did have a better time tapering off of that compared to what I felt with methadone so far. But the theory is that I could take that Sublocade shot for a month or two and allow it to sort of self-taper me off at the end. So these are all the things that I'm considering right now. I have a great counselor at the clinic right now. She's one of the few professionals there with a master's degree. She is working on DBT with me, especially to help me with my mindfulness stuff, to help me sort of learn how to better tolerate my discomfort, which is a huge reason of why I've been trapped in my benzo and opioid, addiction for so long. Like I wish I could say like it's mainly like trauma, it's mainly deep anxiety and depression, and like yeah, I have all of those things, but like the truth is a lot of what keeps me trapped is just not having the strength to go through the pain. So I'm doing DBT with my counselor, whose name is Kelly, who's wonderful. She's helping me out, but I wish the clinic did more, guys. They did offer me clonidine. Frankly, I have like a lifetime supply of clonidine, which is a type of blood pressure. If you don't know what it is, it's a type of blood pressure agent called an alpha blocker, and basically it blocks adrenaline and it helps sort of decrease restless leg syndrome, decrease anxiety, and things like that. So yeah, I wish I could get gabapentin in particular. That's kind of a strange medication. It's kind of in its own class. It just sort of calms your nerves down. It was actually approved originally for use in post-herpetic neuralgia, so in the nerve pain you get after Lyme disease. It was also found to be very helpful for for like diabetic related neuropathy and things like that. But guys, gabapentin, it used to be like just if you were an addict, because it wasn't a controlled substance and because it was really effective, they were so glad to give you this instead of something like a benzos. So for years and years, I was on gabapentin and it really helped me. Again, in the state like I'm in today, it would slow my mind down. It would bring my anxiety down. It would let me get some sleep. And it is the best medication that is not a controlled substance that I have ever taken for opioid withdrawal. It is more effective for opioid withdrawal for me than even a strong benzo, which is unbelievable. Now, gabapentin does have a physical and psychological dependence risk, but in my experience, and in general, not just my experience, in general, that is pretty minimal relative to things like opioids and benzos. It's not something it's negligible, but it's manageable, and crucially, I can control my intake of gabapentin. It's not something that disinhibits me so much that I'm taking handfuls of it. So I wish I could get gabapentin from someone. I guess I'm glad I'm talking this all through, because I'm going to make a call and see if maybe I can see an outside doctor, maybe even pay cash and get a gabapentin script. The clinic has to approve that, but I'm tapering off anyway. You know, what are they going to do? Force me off the medication, which they can do if you're not listening to them. But like, I'm already tapering off at a super fast rate anyway. So I want to work with them. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to work, I don't want to make waves when it's not necessary. But if it came down to it, like, I'm not going to die because I can't get a medication that is relatively safe that would help me get off of this stuff. Like, that's not reasonable, you know? So I don't know if this is even going to be something that any other human being can listen to without like having a panic attack, or without just being completely, I don't know, like bored or turned off. So if you made it this far, thank you for riding the Brian train to the destination. I'm really, I told you guys I want to start like a Taperers Anonymous or something like that, because in the comments there are so many of us getting off of not just methadone and buprenorphine maintenance, but people's drugs of choice. So Oxycontin, fentanyl, people getting off of benzos. And I would love for us to be able to have a Discord, or at least to be able to have a regular chat of some type where we can share how we're doing, where we can exchange practical tips, and where we can just support each other, because the YouTube comments, it's a tough format for doing that. And despite that, you guys have been unbelievably supportive. Like, again, it has objectively helped my taper to get the support that I've gotten from you guys. That has shocked me. I didn't think it was going to be like that. I always thought, like, mainly recovery has to be IRL, and, online support can be kind of supplemental, it can be kind of an added bonus, but I never thought it would be the really strong just plus that it has been for me. So thank you guys so much. Again, I'm just checking in to let you guys know how everything is going. I know that this is scatterbrain, but let me know how you guys are doing, please, as well. And hope you all have a wonderful day, a nice night, and that we all get where we need to go with minimal pain, and we can get to optimal health and just be better versions of ourselves 6 months from now, a year from now. I hope that we can all reconvene as like super people versions of ourselves. So I've gotten to that point in recovery before, and I want that so badly for myself again now, and I want it for all of you who are going through this too. So I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon.